What's up, guys? We are back and we have another banger. We've got Jason. I'm sure you all know Jason. He is the, how do you say it, the $250 million webinar man? It's
That is
probably higher than
correct.
that.
Yep.
It's probably higher than that as of what, last week and the week prior. They just keep going up.
Last night,
Last
Ryan, we
night?
crushed a brand new webinar. I'm a little hungover as I got the webinar hangover today. We killed it out of the gate last night. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw the post about that. I don't know. You can talk about clients or not or whatever, but yeah, I saw some posts around there. I think it was like 4,000 people around there. It was like 400 or 4,000, one of the two. But
4,000 register for a webinar on webinars, which is like nobody wants to learn that stuff.
yeah, that's hilarious. The meta, the meta. Well, cool. Yeah. So like, how would you describe what you currently do? Is it all webinars? Is it like yeah, what's your gist?
No, that's a great question, Ryan. I'm typically in a strategist role. And then the output of that is often webinars because for the clientele that I work with, webinars are the most scalable tool on the internet. So like with Iman Gadzhi earlier this year, we did a launch and we used webinars, a series of webinars, which is an even more advanced usage, but nonetheless, the output was webinars. Alex Hormozi, I'm going to be working with him for his book launch coming up
Nice.
for his new book. And that's webinars. It's funny because I advised him on the last book launch and he did a webinar then. So I gave him a structure for that and it was short. And this time he came to me and he was like, we're going to do a long one. And I'm like, music to my ears because they tend to work a lot better the longer you go. So they use webinars as the output because they're reaching 500,000 people, if not more. And so, how do you reach massive people at scale and also get the benefit of being live? Because there's nothing more effective from a persuasive capability than being live in the moment. And this is in a purchase event. Because, like, go to YouTube if you want to reach 1 million people, but not be live and then brand. That's really smart. But when it comes time to convert in mass, this is the best way to do it. So, I'm mostly in an advisory role from a strategy perspective. This is the position we take, this is the offer we make, and then this is the way that we articulate and communicate it. So I'm known as the webinar guy because that's really how I figured this stuff out, and that's often how we show up the most. But really, I have the biggest impact for my clients and my business by finding a way to enter a market that is as most advantageous as possible.
Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. So quick context on us. I'm not sure. We did 30 last year, all on a call funnel. So everything that we do is only over the phone. At that time we had zero direct to cart. So now we have some low ticket ascension funnels that are still pretty low volume, like pretty low, 100, let's call it 100 a day, sometimes 50, let's sometimes more, but we've
It's
never
good, man.
done anything at scale direct to cart. So like this is a major education lesson for me as well, because I see them all over the place. I know it works. But yeah, so I had people ask some questions online and I have a ton of questions too, but what is your like, so in an advisory role, generally with webinars, like how did that come to be for you? So I think at one time you had your own setup and it was like agency style, right? Like how did that transition?
Yeah, I mean, it mostly came because, God, I go back 1 million years in this business. I know I look young, Ryan. I feel old, and I'm somewhere in the middle. Uh, so I've been at the forefront of a lot of innovative things that have occurred on the internet. I mean, we call it digital marketing now, but when I started, it was internet marketing, and we call
Yeah.
them digital products now, but we used to call them all kinds of things.
Yeah, all kinds
Info
of things.
products is the
Exactly.
main thing we used to call them before that. So I've seen it. I've seen the rebrand of the internet. So I've just been able to pioneer a lot of strategies and be in a lot of places that were disruptive. So I got in the game doing low ticket funnels back in 2007. Not that wasn't strategy, that was just because I was lacking the confidence to sell anything at a higher ticket and I didn't know any better and I couldn't focus long enough to build out a complicated funnel with a high ticket product and all that bells and whistles. So I would sell super cheap products, which is kind of the fad today.
Yeah.
And it's actually a valid strategy for a different reason. So I started low ticket. Then I went up to, mid ticket, high ticket. I did video sales letters, written sales letters. I did one-on-one selling, one-to-many selling. I experimented with everything just to see what would work. Then I got tired of doing digital products and I got into software. So then I discovered all cool things about software and some of the unique things that you can do with software to sell it. And then I got into affiliate marketing because, I started noticing, hey, what if I could just do the marketing and not have to also do the fulfillment and live completely in marketing world? So then I figured out and innovated stuff on the affiliate side, and then Amazon got big. Then we got into Amazon.
Yeah.
So then we learned that model, and then Shopify got big. And I had the exclusive marketing rights to the first ever Shopify product that Shopify had approved. Shopify had approved, go out there, market it. So I got in and I experienced that, right? I've experienced, when crypto became a thing, and played in that environment as well. So I have the ability to take all these unique experiences across various different industries and various different disruptions and be able to source from that. So when I sit down with a client, I say, okay, here are the levers that we could potentially pull. And I think for this makes the most sense. So I'll give you a great example with Iman. So Iman, he sells to a younger demographic, 22, 23, 24 years old. And it's typically a lower ticket for me than I'm used to selling. Like we're used to selling higher tickets. So this was a $1,500 launch. And they came into the launch thinking they were going to do like a 5-day sequence, what they call a challenge. And then they were going to pitch on day 4, which is good conventional wisdom. But I took one look at his offer and I saw how good it was. And I said, we should do it on day 2, not day 4, because we don't need that much buildup to make the offer. Yeah. And the decay that we'll lose by day 4, because you will always lose people from day 1 to day 4, we will lose money even if we have a higher conversion, because we will reach less people. And then we also have the ability, once we set a sale in place, and this is a mistake a lot of people make when they make offers, is a no doesn't necessarily mean no. I mean, that sounds a little weird. Like, take that out of context. She said no, but it didn't mean no, Jason. Don't go there on me, okay? Use your brain, right? In marketing, often no means no based upon how I understand it currently. But I'm interested for it to be yes under the right circumstances. And then you help them see if it's yes or no, and you go through that process. And if you do it collaboratively, then people are very grateful to have you help them make a decision. So if we could work more post-offer with other kind of marketing that I've discovered, having different conversations based on the fact that they've now seen the offer, so now we can do things we couldn't do before, I knew that there was massive advantage to that. And so we moved the launch up, the offer, to day 2. With Alex for his book launch last time, he came in with a standard webinar presentation, and he was thinking we were going to drop, link 45 to 60 minutes in, like you would normally do, tell a story and all this kind of stuff. And I said to him, based on what I knew he was going to do, I said, dude, this should be a 30-minute webinar tops before you get to the offer, and it shouldn't be structured like a normal webinar. It should be structured specifically like this. And he breathed a huge sigh of relief, because he's like, oh, that's a lot easier than what I had planned on doing. And again, because it's good in mass to take the strategies that we talk about and use them off the shelf. That's smart. But what I do then for when the stakes are incredibly high is I take that extra little nuance and all that little different things that make it unique, and then try to calibrate to that.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. We do a lot of stuff around opt-in funnels for our VSL funnels. We have longer form VSLs than ours are 25, 30.
Love it.
The idea being, right, that the consumption is there, and then you try and run like a DTA, like a direct to app funnel, and it's like, well, obviously, right, the consumption doesn't exist yet. So we've optimized that around that forever, just consumption, a lot of middle and bottom of funnel content. But the webinar thing's just so interesting. For us, it's always been like the offer creation. So are you ever sitting on that side of it? Because
100%.
Yeah.
People make the mistake. They focus on the vehicle.
So let me just make a webinar to sell whatever thing. And our example is what are we going to sell that's not going to kill the back end or cannibalize the back end or whatever. So,
and so, I have the testimonial from Alex Hormozi saying that my training was the best he's ever seen on offer creation. It's an inspiration for the book that he wrote, $100 million offers. So we start with offers, and I take it to a different level. I love to make the audience participate in the creation of the offer. So this is my favorite marketing. And these are the circumstances that we play in a lot. Is my biggest launches internally. So we did a $57 million launch internally. We had a client that was a partner of ours, and we rolled it out beta style. And so this is one of my favorite offers to ever make, where you say, hey, we got this idea. It's worked for us. We showed it informally to a few other people. It worked for them. I don't know if it will work for you or not. We haven't tested it with our clients yet. So we're looking for a few customers to test this out on. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to teach this to you. I don't know what the structure will even look like, but I'm pretty confident. And here's how I'm going to make this the best deal for you and be the most hands-on with you, because you're going to be my guinea pig. But we're only taking on X number of people. And then they apply. And then once they apply, we hand select who we think we could help the most. So in this one particular case, we took on 18 people. So 18 people paid us $10,000. So we ran a beta group one-on-one with them, and we were able to document all of their results. And now the marketing becomes, when we launch it to the group, here are every single one of our beta testers, not just the ones that did good, not just the ones that did great, literally all 18 of them. And here's how they're doing right now in the moment, because we use third-party software to capture their actions and activity and then shared that. So we can't manipulate it. We can't change it. Here you go. You can watch alongside exactly how they're doing right now, full transparency. So we set up the offer before we do anything else to have the maximum impact. And then in this particular case, Ryan, what was really cool is we had a price anchor. These people over here paid $10,000. When we sell the group offer, we said, hey, listen, we did it one-on-one. We don't know if we can do it in a group setting. So now it's group beta, but it's $2,500. And we can make the argument saying we have perfected the product now based upon, the 57 hours that we put into it working on fulfillment for clients. So it's arguably better, but we don't know. We've never done it in a group yet. So we're going to do it alongside of you live to lock in the material. If you act fast enough, you get it for $2,500. We plan on selling it for $3,500 in mass. And now we have hey, those people paid $10K. I only get to pay $2,500, and I get to see all that they've done, and they've refined the process to be better at teaching me. And so we did a launch of that. We successfully took in a whole bunch of clients. And then we went back and said, hey, we noticed there was a few things that we didn't quite get right that we could improve on. We now have been able to develop these assets that we didn't have before. So we want to run one more beta before we roll it out to the world. And then this is the biggest launch I've ever done internally, $57 million. And we did it in 226 days, because we would roll one beta into the next, Ryan. And so it was exciting. It wasn't a marketing campaign. It was an experience that was unfolding in real time that they could co-create on. So when we look at offers, I'm always thinking, how do we set it up so the offer will have the maximum amount of impact? And that's like my favorite way to do it. There's like 1,000 ways that we could yap all day on offers.
Yeah, so that one's interesting. So that went from internal. So you're selling, the initial webinar was to client base, and it was for a new offer to the client base for one-to-one. Then the next role was for group, but to the same client base. And then after that, it went to mass market to become new customers. So lead to.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Because every launch has levels to it. And it's too soon often when people are launching new products when they go to mass market. Because you just haven't had the time yet to optimize the product. So it doesn't make sense to put it in front of every single buddy before you've nailed it. Because the further out you go from your warm audience, the harder it is to sell the product, and the more demanding the clientele is. So it's foolish to go big fast. Nail it small and then go large.
Yeah. So what is the current market say for pricing? How high can you go on direct to cart with a bunch of consumption through webinar, right? Because you've got like your different layers of selling or awareness, you different things. And in the past, for a long time, it was basically 2K plus, get them on the phone, stuff like that. And you go up to 5K plus. Different people have different opinions on that. But where do you see that currently?
I see an interesting thing happening in marketing right now. Two things are occurring. One is direct response is not as, what's the best way to frame this? It's not that direct response doesn't work. Direct response is incredibly effective. So just so everybody's clear listening, what is direct response? It is basically, I put you in a funnel and I measure what you do in that funnel. And my goal is to try to push you from that funnel, specifically measuring your responses at each step in the funnel. So I'm trying to get you to do something directly, and I'm measuring your response rate. So opt in here, and then so many people will see this, so many people will book a call, and from that call, so many people will show up, and so many people who show up, so many people will buy, right? It's a linear process. And direct response is incredibly important. Like we see it in YouTube, like the titles you use, the thumbnails you use, the first X number of seconds, consumption rate, all of that is based on old school direct response marketing. However, direct response in and of itself, I feel, is losing its effectiveness. Branding is becoming more important, but not solely just branding. It is a mixture of direct response combined with branding. That's where the winning is occurring. In the past, most of us never even touched branding because it was too expensive and it took too long and you didn't know if it worked or not. But we can get in reps. Like Ryan, you did how many videos every single day on YouTube?
120. 120 days in a row. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that used to be
I had to
incredibly
build my
expensive.
catalog in my moat.
Yeah. I mean, it cost you time.
Yeah.
But before, it used to cost you time and a lot of money to distribute media like that. So you need both. You can't only rely on funnels. You need to start building branding, and you need to create all sorts of experiences independent of funnels. You can't only build experiences around funnels to get the most amount of customers these days. So that's the first factor. Now, here's the second factor. Consumers have more substitutables than ever before. So this works both in media and in offer. So let me parse this. The thing is, customers can say, hey, listen, I like podcasts. So if you don't give me the material in a podcast format, I'll listen to somebody else who will. Now, in the past, Ryan, this is what's cool. Even 5 years ago, clients were like, you don't have a podcast on this. You have a VSL. I guess I'll watch it because there's no other choice. Even though I don't want to watch the media, I will, because there's no substitutes. Nowadays, there are more substitutes. And so consumers are saying, if you don't give it to me in the method and the format that I prefer, then I'm more likely to ignore you and go to somebody else who does that. So, God, it's difficult we don't want to over rely on a funnel anymore. We want to have multiple funnels, ideally. Thank God for AI, by the way, because this does make it a lot easier. We want to have multiple funnels, and we don't want to only rely on funnels. We want to create a relationship with the audience. So regardless of where they're at in the funnel, or even if they're in the funnel or not, we are increasing the likeliness that they'll respond to us. So now that's a lot of setup, okay? So what I'm finding is working the best is a low-ticket funnel these days. A low-ticket front-end offering. Forget the word funnel even. Yeah. What we want to do is, and here's why this is tough for old school marketers, and really tough for the young guys listening to the old school marketers, because man, they're harder to teach new tricks to than dogs are, right? Like when I was coming up, low ticket meant if you pay me low ticket, you keep paying me low ticket. I have ruined the experience to ascend you because I've associated myself with being cheap. And so therefore you will not spend large amounts of money with me because I position myself as being a low ticket person. And that was generally true. Now I worked really hard on my persuasive capabilities, and I was able to break that general axiom. I could, and I was one of the few that could ascend people from a low ticket to a high ticket offer. And that's why I got paid a lot of money, because people would bring me in saying, I can't close them. I said, no problem. I'll close them for you, you know? But that is no longer the case. Now people will buy low ticket to sample, because what is more credible, your sales letter talking about how awesome you are, or the delivery of a product experientially showing the user how awesome you are? And so they say, listen, I don't know if I should buy from you or not. You seem cool. I like your branding. Let me sample you as a customer by spending a small amount of money with you. Because again, I have a bunch of substitutables. I could buy 162 books on Kindle on the same exact topic, right? So I don't want to risk spending money with you, even though I believe everything you say and it sounds good. Let me try out the product to see if the product delivery is good, see if the value is there. Now they're more filtering brands based upon, can you give me a positive customer experience independent of the amount of money that I pay you? And so what we want to do is We want to get as many customers as we can to pay us money, regardless of the amount of money. And then we want that positive experience to be so amazing that they then come back and say, okay, you're the real deal. You're one of the few that give me a really positive experience. Now I'm interested in doing business with you at a much higher level. And so this is often what we're doing with clients. That's why the joke is always, Ryan, people always ask me, how do you sell to a cold audience? And I say, you make them warm. Don't try to sell to a cold audience, right? How do you make them warm? You get them to give you money. I don't care how much money, but you get them to have a client relationship with you. And I think that's the best strategy for most brands these days, Ryan, is have something that is inexpensive for them to sample you out and then exceed their expectations significantly.
Yeah, no, that's rings true with what we're trying to do. So when you say low ticket, do you generally focus on, I'm sure you do everything. Like you said, there's 1,000 ways to cut it, but like we focus specifically on low ticket ascension for that reason, because everything we do is really based on that. It's not even back end. It's like the core offering is a better way to say it. And it's, I mean, we're going from sub 100 to plus 7K
Yep.
on that ascension, and it works quite well. Our thing right now is the low ticket mass market enough, or can it be sold to cold like well enough? The awareness of what it is, and it's kind of specific to a thing, so it only gets to X amount before the net CPA breaks. So we're like reworking and redoing other ones right now, but very curious about the ascension versus AOV style funnels for low ticket because of the time to ascend is really
Yeah.
like where I frame on it, right? Because like if you can collapse that time down, ours is like 5 days, right? Is our, which is great because we
That's
focus
great.
it in. They go in, they talk to a setter, they like book a call. We basically just push them to a call. They get on a call, they get framed, they get set, and they go to a closer. So it's like almost like a 2-call close situation, and it works great. Ascension rate's fantastic, but we're focused there. So like the other side of it is, do you build something that is front end profitable, ideally, or mostly, if not full liquidation, and then focus on community aspects, the piece inside the product that naturally ascend to them / attempt to ascend them. Like how do you look at that?
It's complicated, right? We're linear human beings. The brain is made to think linear. First this, then that, this process, this order. The real experience of the world, though, is non-linear. So, for example, somebody who opts in and says no to your low ticket product might still buy your $7,000 product.
Yeah.
So the old funnel would say if they stop here, then they stop here. We say no, not necessarily. So you can use lead scoring and you can use other technical things to sift and sort people. You got the lead, so it doesn't really matter to me. I don't want to just only rely on a linear process. I want to look at multiple dimensions of how we can interact with these customers. So, for example, I know that some people will buy immediately a high ticket item. And if they say no to the low ticket item, doesn't mean that they're not a right fit for the high ticket item. It could be the opposite. They don't want to screw around with Ascension. They want to go straight to the top. So we have to have the capabilities in order to test that out to see if we can do this in this market. Other clients, we can go parallel with them. They might not buy the high ticket thing, but they could buy a derivative of the high ticket thing. And we don't have to necessarily have them say no to this to say yes to this, right? Different segments. Oftentimes, if you elongate the sales funnel, you will increase the sales significantly. So the old school, and this is funny how this progression has worked, Ryan, is you would first it was like you just get on the call, and then you try to sell them, and that could work. And then people are like, we should set calls. That's a breakthrough, right? So now there's 2 touch points. You set them up, and then you get them on the call. And then some marketers, a lot of the clients that I work with that are working the best, they do a 2-part close. The first call with the closer isn't a sales close, actually. It's a meet and greet. It's a communication. It's determining whether they should even be sold on the first call or not. And then they book the second call, and then they close on the second call. So this is the progression. We have now went from straight to a call to sell them to a set to call 1 and then close on call 2. And generally, the more touch points that you're going to have in that process and the more experience and the longer you go, the better results you're going to get. But you got to balance that with the practicality of what's my cash flow look like.
Yeah, or the economics.
What's my
Yeah.
talent? Because most sales guys don't want to do 2 calls. They
Yeah.
don't look at that as they look at that as half the profitability, even though it's not. But we try to be flexible. We're like, okay, for this segment of the market, here's what we can do. But for that segment of the market, we can also do something else with them. And we want to be able to experience our marketing on multiple dimensions. We don't want to just rely on an ascension model. And here's why we can now do this, Ryan, because even in the past, if you had this idea and you understood this theory that I'm talking about, you still couldn't implement it very easily because you only have so much time in the day and you only have so many resources. But I had a kid cold call me last year, and this is really when it set home with me, Ryan. He calls me up. It's a great cold call, by the way. Not because he knew the technique, but it works so good. I answer the call and he goes, "Oh, I didn't think you would actually answer." I'm like, damn, what an opener. Oh, I was like, this is good. And he was genuine. And it was so funny because there was something going on in my personal life that was really frustrating to me. It felt like things were out of my control, and I don't like it when things are out of my control. I was really upset. I was really frustrated. And then this cold call comes in. So I answer it, and he says, "Oh, I didn't think you would answer." And I go, "Good, I can help this kid." It's in my control. So I said to him, because he said, I read your book and I found your number because I did, I looked all this up and somehow I got your number. So I wanted to call you. And he tells me a situation. He says the first job I've ever gotten was working with a digital e-commerce company. And I do this, and this. I do social media for them, and I do, some SEO and some pay-per-click. And I'm 18 years old. And I thought, damn, my first job was I would take I painted houses. That was my first job as a kid with my dad. But my first official job where I got hired was I'd go around the city and they'd rake the leaves and they would put them on the curb, and then you'd take this big machine and you would suck them up, and I worked for the city. And then I worked at a carpet house after that, like a flooring house selling flooring. These are my first jobs. His first job is digital marketing. Literally the first job he's ever had in his life. And he's one of many people. So again, back in my day, we couldn't hire anybody to do any of this stuff. Nowadays, there are so much talent, especially globally, not just in the United States. So you can bring on more people to help you have more throughput of these assets that you could create. And I think that's who's going to win the day, because now we can build other marketing as opposed to just linear marketing to take advantage of these. Now, again, I work with some of the biggest names who have massive capacity with staff, resources, et cetera, et cetera. So I have that experience because I see it and I see the effect of that. But even on a smaller scale, the attitude should be, how am I able to calibrate to all these different segments of the market? Because the more I can speak to each segment, the more I can connect with, and the more I can convert, and the more I can serve on each and every one of these segments. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, there's some good questions that people drop, but I want to kind of go through some of these because I'm super curious on your response. But noticeable differences on webinar AOV versus call funnel AOV, which kind of goes back to that initial thing we talked about. But obviously, there's big volume differences, there's consumption differences, there's flow after the fact differences, but just overall AOV difference on a call funnel versus a webinar.
It depends, which is unfortunately always the answer in marketing, right?
Everything. There's 1,000 different ways to look at it, but
the patient comes to the doctor and says, I have a headache. What could it be? Well, it depends. I got to ask you a lot of questions and do a lot of diagnostics. I find for most clients these days, a book a call funnel works better for them than a straight to add to cart. Now, notice I didn't say one had a higher order value than the other. Because if you can do it direct to cart, you will have a smaller order value, but you will scale much larger. Like, how are we going to put, if I have 50,000 people on live like we did with Iman, we had 59,000 people. You couldn't hire enough people to take those calls.
There's no way.
It would be impossible, right? Yeah. So we know that the order value is going to be lower. Now, we still have people calling. But again, you sift and sort, and you use lead scoring, and then you can call certain people if it makes sense to call them, or you can do inbound. Like with Alex, they're going to have a bunch of people calling. And it was funny because they're order takers only, because believe it or not, and this is really insightful, some people won't pay you money just because they get confused on the checkout process. We take it for granted, but we shouldn't. And I don't take it for granted. I always call it the handhold close. Like when I literally close, I'm like, here, one of the closes I use is say, go to this page right here. The first thing you're going to notice is this button. I want you to click on this button. It's going to ask you your first name, put your first name in here. Now put in your last name here, and you walk them through the order form, right? But if you can do it on the call, you'd be amazed at how much money, especially at scale, that you can make. So we prioritize those and we put them in the call that way. So it's never either or. It's just a matter of capacity. I find more people can do better with a call funnel than they can with a straight cart because, God, the technical requirements for you to make that work in most markets, most people don't have them these days. And the cost to acquire them in time, effort, and energy, it's easier just to build a phone room. It's just easier to have people get on a phone call with them. I just recommend clients do the call. And then I say, in no risk, low risk environments, start experimenting with direct add to cart. So take your best clients and make an offer just for them and do that direct add to cart and see how that works out. Because if you don't have to spend any money on ad costs anymore. Hey, if you can't make it work with your best clients, you ain't going to make it work anywhere else. And you get the practice and you get the reps in, and then you can do both. You can now have direct to cart, and you can also have a call funnel working on there, or you can send people to the phones. So I think for most clients these days, Ryan, it's a better path to go to the phone.
Yeah, I always say better the phone because like once you get them on the phone, there's just so much more room for error. Like you can change the offer on the phone. You can offer something, this 10K, nope, it's $1,000. You want 4 extra coaching calls to get you over the line. Like wasn't in the webinar script or wasn't in the sales page. Like it's not offered. They didn't get sold on it, but just more malleable. So yeah, I completely agree. What do you see as the 3 biggest levers someone can pull for their webinars conversion?
Yeah, that's a good one. 3 biggest levers. First one is a better offer, right? Like, and I know it's kind of a cop out, but let me get very specific. So to me, an offer has 5 parts. The first part is your core offer. This is the main thing that you're selling them. So here's what you are presenting as you're buying this from me. And here's what the audience is. When I spend money, this is what I'm acquiring. That's the core offer. Then there's the price. Not only what it is, but how you position it and where you reveal it in the offer. Then there are the bonuses. And these are the extra things you get for free when you say yes to the offer. And then there's the risk, which oftentimes is addressed with a guarantee, perhaps. And then there's this scarcity. Here is the time frame in which you can make the decision to get the best part of the offer, and here's what happens if you don't make it within this time frame. So these are the 5 elements that we look at when we are working on an offer. So the number one factor that will determine your conversion or not and increase its effectiveness, assuming we have the right target audience, so we did our targeting correctly, and we have a good offer, a generally good offer. Reducing the risk will be your number one most effective way to increase conversion. And everybody does it backwards, Ryan. They try to increase the value. And I always, here's the example I give to that. So if I say, hey, listen, you can buy this lottery ticket. If you win, it's $1 billion, but your odds are like 10 billion to 1. You're like, that's not a safe investment. I think we could all agree on that. And so you don't buy it from me. I say, well, listen, I'll sweeten the deal. If you buy it in the next 10 minutes, if you win, you'll get a $5 billion jackpot, not a $1 billion. Now, are you in? And you say, what's the odds? Same odds. You're like, nah, because whether it's $1 billion or $5 billion, you don't care. What you care about is risk, not increased value, decrease risk. And so what will make an offer more effective if you want to improve its conversion is you focus on how do we take the risk level down on the user? And this gets really exciting. This is where I start to craft better than money back guarantees, where they're conditional. If you do X, Y, and Z and you don't achieve A, B, and C, then not only will I refund your purchase, I will compensate you for your time. Or I will do X for you, or I will do this for you, I will do that for you. I will unlock these additional resources that you otherwise wouldn't give access to as a plan B for you in case this doesn't work. So what we do is we try to de-emphasize risk. One of the best ways we can de-emphasize risk, this is why I have a webinar hangover, because we went for about 4 hours last night. The webinar presentation was 1.5 hours long. Then we spent 2.5 hours answering questions and helping people to determine if it made sense for them to say yes or not. And there's no additional cost to that. Thank God Zoom doesn't charge you by the minute. Otherwise, I would be broke, right? Um, it's the time is the only cost. And you're not going to unsell somebody in that situation. You could only sell more people. You're not going to lose people who've already bought. And you get experience, which is always valuable. So, but this decreases risk on the user because you hang in there with them and you keep working on the different ways in which they could look at the offer and see if it makes sense. So the number one thing we always emphasize is how do we decrease risk? That's the first thing. And then the second thing is how do we better position price? So oftentimes, Ryan, people will put their price at the end if they're doing direct to cart. It's different on a call funnel, but let's just start with direct to cart. So the standard theory to this day, and it's wrong almost always, is let me show you everything, and then I'll tell you how much you have to invest and where to go in order to get it. And this is rooted oftentimes in insecurity. Like, I don't want you to tell me no, so I'm going to do everything I can to show you how awesome this thing is before I ask you to say yes. But it doesn't matter how awesome the thing is. Most people will say no to something the first time that they see it, even if they want it, especially if they want it, because yes is a bigger commitment, and there's more at stake to say yes, and it's scary, even if it's the right thing. So I know that the natural reaction is going to be no, so let me get a no early as opposed to later, and then sell after the no. So with the core offer, we will introduce the offer and go straight to the price within the first few minutes and then ask for the order immediately. So when I start to pitch on a webinar, I'm typically asking for money 4 minutes after I start pitching.
Huh.
And most people will say no. And then I'll reveal the first bonus, and then the second one, and then the third one, and then the fourth one, and then the fifth, and maybe the sixth, and maybe the seventh. And then I will do risk reversal with a guarantee of some sort or what have you, right? And then I will do closes and, deal with objections and things like that. So price is a distant memory at this point, and the real focus on is this a smart investment or not based on the value and the risk that we're assessing. So we got the no's out of the way earlier so we can move on to the yeses. And so how we position price makes a big difference on whether something is valuable or not. So if I take you down to the ghettos here in LA, we go to Compton or Watts and say there's a house on the block here. It's in a dangerous area and it's $1 million for this house and it's falling apart. You would tell me to get lost. She says a horrible deal. But if I said, hey, listen, within that house, there's a long lost Rembrandt painting that's worth multiple millions of dollars and nobody knows it exists in there, you would say, sign me up. I'll pay triple whatever the asking price is for the house because I have information about what makes this valuable independent of the number. So a number needs context, and this is how we provide context. We position price correctly. And so that's the second biggest thing that we do there. And then the third biggest thing is we should have demonstrations if at all possible. So I could tell you how valuable something is, and you might believe me, but if I show you how valuable it is, then you will believe me. So one of my favorite things to do is a setup, Ryan. So I had this webinar that ran very successfully for many years where I showed them this manual process of here's how you evaluate these products to sell on Amazon if you want to be a reseller of them. You run this math formula. So you look at product A, you crunch these 4 numbers, and then it's a yay or a nay. You look at product B, crunch these 4 numbers in this mathematics sequence, and you got to get these 4 numbers by going to this website and then pulling this from here and getting this and getting this and getting this, and then you see if you want to sell this product or not. I get them to agree with me. This is awesome. This is valuable. And I will 100% do it, even though it will take me 5 to 10 minutes per product. And then in the offer, the wow moment, the demonstration is, hey, we have an app. Now we can do products like this. Click, and it analyzes all the page one's listings for a search term, and it says these 6 products you should resell. And then we do another search. We say, click, these 6 products you should sell, or these 5 products, or these 9 products. And so we are able now to dramatically demonstrate it. Now, Ryan, this gets crazy, or this is like super advanced. I'm the affiliate. Actually, in this case, I'm the spokesperson for the product. So I have a deal where I sell on behalf of the client. So he pays me royalties, a percentage of all sales that come in. So I'm the spokesperson. I'm presenting it, selling somebody else's product. And my bonus is not part of his product. Because when he hired me to sell it, Ryan, I said, damn, this is going to be hard to sell because I'm going to have people do math. Nobody wants to do math. They'd rather be broke, I guess, right? And I said, we don't have a good way to answer this objection or a good way to just really blow people's mind. So as the spokesperson independently, I subcontracted a company to build this little app for me. Yeah. And I said, you can't get this from the creators. They don't have it. You can only get this when you buy from me. So not only do I have something that's incredibly demonstrable, but I also have something that's exclusive, and I set it up. I didn't come right out and say, let me show you this awesome tool that will do this thing for you with the click of a button. I built the tension and the drama and the excitement. And then I had in the offer the big reveal. Like they do this in movies. We should do this in our offers. We had this big reveal. Oh my God, this is amazing. I got to buy this thing right away, because they were considering buying it when it was 10 times harder, because it was still super valuable. And then I had that boom, coup de grace at the end of it. So setting up the value and then paying it off with a demonstration is really incredible. So reduce the risk, position the price more effectively, and then demonstrate the value.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's amazing.
Thank you.
My brain is turning on how to do it, because I have like 4 different ideas now on how we're going to do this for our setup. Because again, we have literally never touched this. So like, I think we're sitting on a literal gold mine with tens of thousands of customers. Next one on here is John Benson's VSL model. Did that influence anything? Do you study his work?
So John is a client of mine. If you watch some of his webinars, I don't know if he uses this anymore, but he used to, because I certified him because he trained under me. And he used to use that as a proof element. He's like, I've been certified by Jason Fladlien. I'm like, thanks, man. I love it. Yeah. And John's a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to work with John on Benson because he tried to hire me for it. We just, I'm difficult, Ryan. I'm like a hot chick at prom, right? Like a lot of men want to take me, but I play hard to get.
That's fair enough.
That's a terrible analogy now that I think of it. But
no, it's true though. I got you. It's the right dress.
I said to John, I go, I need these results from these clients first, and I need this in order to cook. Because if I'm a master chef, but I don't have the best ingredients, I don't want to cook the meal. And so, and again, no shade, because John then went off and he's doing what he does and he got busy. Same thing happened with Sam Ovens. Is when he wanted to launch school, he first came to me and said, I'd like you to help me launch it. And I said, yes, I need these ingredients. And then he ended up doing a deal with Alex and said, God bless him. Right. Like, but it's so funny because they are completely different media. So there might be similarities in the sense of the persuasive techniques we use, but how we use them varies very differently. And I would never be as good at John as John is at VSL. And he's never going to be as good as me at webinars, if I can say so myself, right? Now, I will use both. We are a huge fan of using both. VSLs are really effective with cold advertising because you get the feedback much quicker.
Yeah.
Are we targeting the right audience or not? Are we on the mark or are we not on the mark? VSLs are incredibly effective in more sophisticated markets for higher end buyers. So like, an 8-figure business owner is unlikely to show up on any webinar. They just don't. So generally you don't do webinars for advanced, client profiles, but they'll watch a 6-minute video or a 9-minute video. They'll watch 30 seconds of the video thinking they're going to cancel it. And then if you can hook them, they'll watch the next 30 seconds. So they'll do a 9-minute or a 12-minute VSL. So they have different purposes. So even though they both essentially accomplish the same thing, the way in which you would implement them is drastically different. Like 9 out of 10 times when we do VSLs, the opener of the VSL is, I have this incredible new thing that I want you to sign up for and become a customer of mine on. Before we get there, though, you need to know the following. So like I'm selling essentially in the first 30 seconds, and then I take it away on a VSL. Because I lean into that media. Like the whole media is designed to immediately get them to step forward. So we don't do a lot of build up. We do no education on a VSL. It's all problem agitate essentially. And it's more hook based, more curiosity, more open loops, all that kind of stuff. Because it's more easy come, easy go. So we calibrate to the media. And this is what drives me nuts is people, they try to force the media to the situation. They try to force the situation to the media. I force the media to the situation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, if I say, hey, listen, like in this market, I think the best thing to test out first is a VSL for these reasons, we do that. And then we write a specific structured thing that follows the best principles of what works good in a VSL. Like, let's just lay them side by side, Ryan. If I'm doing a live webinar, what can I do on a live webinar that I can't do on a VSL? I can have back and forth call and response. I can say things like, one of my favorite openers in a webinar is I said, to start this webinar off, we're going to do a true or false pop quiz hot shot. And your answers ain't going to get you an A+, but they may give you insight into X, Y, and Z. So kindly do the following for you. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you type T in the chat if you think they're true, or if you type F if you think they're false. You ready? Let's go. Question number 1, ... right? And immediately as a hook, we're engaging the audience, we're creating interaction, we're getting them to type in the chat, and we're having a back and forth. If I did that on a VSL, it doesn't hit the same. I could say, get a paper and pencil out. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you're going to write the answer. It's boring, you know? So we calibrate to the media. Now, if it's an automated webinar, not a live webinar, I'm going to open up with a different hook. So it's like, I'm going to make my offer in an automated webinar at about 40 minutes in, 30 to 40 minutes in. On a live webinar, I'm typically going to make the offer 60 to 75 minutes in, because I know I have a longer time threshold if they're live. I have a shorter one if they're not live. So we don't say, well, this is how you do it because this one guru taught it this one way for everybody to use. We say, how do we take the best of the media, calibrate it to the context, and then be open to using all the media that makes sense. So VSLs, yes. Written sales letters, yes. Podcasts, yes. Webinars, yes. All the above, yes. And all the big clients that I work with, they don't have biases. They just try to figure out how they can implement as many different ways to get people in that sequence and also increase their brand at the same time.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Someone else commented, what's the best way to position a software as a bonus throughout the webinar? But I think you already covered that.
Yeah, I have more ways.
How hard it possibly is, and then just, oh, hey, by the way, click of a button.
I have so many ways with software. Yeah,
it's another good one. I like it.
So, and this is what, so Russell learned this from me. Russell Brunson, when he did ClickFunnels, is he was trying to sell the software. And the problem with selling a software directly is people then focus on the software. Does it work for Mac? Does it work for PC? It's web-based. It doesn't matter, right? Like, what level should I do? Because there was an ABC level. Should I do the beginner level? Should I do the pro level? When you put the emphasis on the software, you invite a whole series of questions and challenges that can be difficult to solve. So instead, what you do is you make the software a free bonus when they buy something else. So you can do the whole webinar on the software, and then the big reveal is the software is free if you buy X, Y, and Z. And then you can do advanced price anchoring. And this is what Russell did. And this is what I discovered this many years ago with software specifically that's exciting. And I taught this, and Russell learned this, is if I have an ABC on my software and I have the premium version, and the premium version is $300 a month. And even though I know most people aren't ultimately going to pay that $300 a month, I can give the most usage, the most instances. My hard cost between offer A, B, and C is minimal. And the effort to create an ABC version of that software is minimal. So now I have a $300 a month. And if we multiply that by a year, that's a $3,600 in retail value, mind you, offer. So if I come on and I sell you a $1,000 training program, and then I throw in a $3,600 bonus for free, where the retail value of the bonus is higher than the core offer that I'm selling you, that creates such powerful demonstration of the value of how good the offer is, because you want the software. I spent the whole time talking about the software. The software is free. That's even better than paying for it, even though you're paying for something else, and it's justifiable. And there's a strong reason why that you can make it free. And then you could say, well, figure out what level you land at after you use it, instead of having to figure that out front. And then we'll move you into the right level as it makes sense to. And so you position the software is free. And I think that that is one of the most effective ways to sell it. And then you can play with how many months are we going to give them for free before they turn into a monthly user and all that kind of stuff as well. Over time, you then use that to buy market share, and then you don't even have to sell it on the webinar anymore, because word of mouth takes over. Then you make trial offers. Then you have all sorts of other stuff that you can do with it. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, I got a Hyros through Becker's like Trojan horse. He had a mastermind / like info product thing, and it was
people
only
forget about that, Ryan. I mean, Alex Becker now has this gigantic. He came from the same place that I came from. I used to watch him sell really cheap stuff on the Warrior Forum back in the day. So I've seen Alex come up through the years, Becker, and then he built this gigantic software with Hyros. But that how he sells it now is not how he initially sold it. And most people that I know that have grown companies like that, it's the same kind of deal. We have a software coming out for webinars right now, and I'm going to use a strategy that's my favorite is. Again, we're going to go in beta initially, and we're going to only allow a small number of people to take it. And they're dying to take it. If you can churn away most people who are trying to give you money and only take on a few, you create the most demand that you can ever have in a marketplace where you actively do not allow people who are trying to give you money, right? I call this the Hermes strategy. So, I bought my wife a Birkin finally because I've been trying to buy her a Birkin. We lived in Cannes the first half of the year for the first 4 months. Long story. Now we're back in LA. So there was a Hermes shop there, and most men, you guys have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. But for women, this is like the most iconic brand in the entire world. For whatever reason, their handbags are just to die for. So you go in, Rolex is the same way, by the way, for men. This Rolex would be the men equivalent. You go in and you go to the store and say, I want to buy a Birkin. And a Birkin's like $15,000 starting, somewhere around there. And they say, no, come back next month. Maybe then. You say, well, can you call me if one comes available? No, can't do it. But come back next month. Maybe. And then you come back next month. Can I buy one now? Nope. We were even doing things like, show us your jewelry. We would pretend we'd be interested in the jewelry first. Oh, maybe we'd buy this. Nobody wants Hermes jewelry. It's not that great, right? So we were like, hey, we'll tell them we want the jewelry, maybe, and then we'll slide in. Hey, do you have any Birkins? And we've bought other things for them. We bought other things from them in the past. And my wife has more than one Birkin because this is a buyer, right? So even then they won't sell it to us. So we had to buy it secondhand because we couldn't buy it directly. And again, Rolex is the same way. So this is branding. This is not direct response. And so what you want to do is if you really want to play the game at the high level, this is what I do. What I'm going to do for my software is I put it out there in front of everybody, but only allow a few people to buy it initially. And then I also do that for two other reasons that are practical that have nothing to do with marketing. A, when you're launching a new software, you can't support a large user base. There's going to be bugs, there's going to be problems, there's going to be issues. So you want to be hands-on. B, you don't really know what features make or break the software. You don't know what people are going to use or how they're going to use it. So you get the best QA possible, and you force consumption because people have earned the right to use it, so they will use it. Where most software, people won't use it even if they pay for it. And then you collect the success stories and you feed that back into the marketing. So really good marketing, Ryan, is when you do one thing and it accomplishes many things. Yeah. And so this is what we're going to do with this software when we're rolling it out. By the way, I would sell it today if it was available. It's not. So, building the damn thing is taking forever. So, but it allows me to tease the hell out of the market. I'm just teasing them. They're dying to buy this thing and they can't.
Yeah. What's your offer stack right now? So you have the consulting side, you're going to have the software, but do you have like a how-to webinar classic? Because I know a lot of these guys have talked about how like you have the best in the business, you have this and that. So does that all come from consulting agreements or what they've seen, or do you have like
we have courses
A to Z set?
Yeah. So we just launched a new one called Webinar Mastery Academy with Onik. That was the webinar that we did last night. Onik Singal. The thing's a monster out of the gate. And that's a webinar training that I did that's half me on the conversion side and then half him on the traffic side. I have the master's level version of my webinars called Go Webinars. That thing is insanely dense. That is not for the beginner. That is for the advanced user. Ultimately, you should buy both, but that's a different product. I have the book One to Many, which is super cheap. You can buy it on Amazon. That I wrote in 2017, which is the bestseller on the topic. So that's like the ways that clients typically get into my world in mass. Otherwise, I will often do very short, small workshops with small groups of people, teaching very esoteric things. Like we have an offer that's going to be launching where 25 people, only $10,000 per user. Because what I'm teaching, I charge $10,000 an hour to clients for. So that's the price anchor. $250,000 to work the material out, maybe pick up a client or two on top of that. So that's another one. So I do a lot of these flash offers internally. But these days, a lot of my time is spent with clients We start off with consulting, $3,500 an hour. And then from that, if it makes sense to do a service of some sort or a partnership of some sort or an integration of some sort, then we spec that out based upon the unique circumstances. And so then it transitions into a combination of payment plus royalty, sometimes based on performance. Often it will move towards performance. And then for a couple of clients, if it makes sense, then it transforms into equity. And then we share the wins and the losses together. And that's the model that I've been working lately. That model came out of Ryan's survival more than anything, because I went through a very difficult period in my life where I had to put the business on hold and deal with a lot of personal stuff with family. So that's how I survived, was purely off of consulting. And then, it churned into now the greatest model I've ever played with. Because God, if you start to work with these businesses now, when I throw these numbers and these names out, Ryan, people tend to get intimidated, like, the Alex Hormozis, the Iman Gadzhis, and all that kind of stuff. Most of my clients are not selling $100 million a year or what have you. Most of them operate invisibly, but they do pretty good numbers behind the scenes and nobody sees them. And so I work with a lot of clients like that are silently just killing it, and they're like blue oceans in their market. And those are like some of my favorite clients. So I've just had a really good experience in the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's amazing. We're running up on time, and I don't want to bump into.
Yeah, and I have a podcast I got to get on next.
Oh man,
and
he's on the tour.
I'm on the tour.
I love it. Well, cool. So, I mean, I saw your YouTube channel. I posted that on X. It's hilarious. My subscribers and my X are like literally like identical. It's like it's my communication platform for everything on YouTube. It kind of just worked out that way with the posting daily, so I could like talk to people about it and then go back and forth. So I posted that on X, so people will find you there. But where's the best place? YouTube, X. What's your spot?
I mean, I've been living on Facebook lately. I don't know why, but that's where all all the responses. And I just came back this year, so this is new. Okay. I took off social media forever. My favorite place is YouTube, but I haven't posted a video in a while, so I need to get back on that. But yeah, hit me up on Facebook, and get the book on Amazon. This is the best way to start.
Amazing. Cool. All right, we'll have to do a part 2 when we launch our webinar. I can tell you live what happened.
Oh, I would love that, Ryan. That would be amazing. Yeah. That
probably seems a little bit easier and more my speed nowadays. So sounds good. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks.